Hi. So one more to listen to. So I'll start with put your hands up if you have ever felt judged by someone. Okay, I think that's everyone. Keep them up if you've ever judged someone else. Still up. Right, okay. So in this little mini ecosystem that we've created here, we can see some similarity. And it's incredible how much time they spend on differences. We focus a lot in the newspaper, in politics, about what divides us, what separates us. But I'm here today to talk to you about the similarity and what essentially binds us as a common humanity that will bring us forward into innovation, provided we allow it and provided we're aware of it. So equanimity is a word that not a lot of people know about. And it's a construct that I hypothesize it mediates all other inner well-being cogs within us. They're all spinning. We've got mindfulness, we've got self-compassion, compassion, gratitude, as we've just heard, and they all do operate within us. But actually, equanimity could actually be the centerpiece. Because what equanimity is an open look at our self-construct and how self-construct gives rise to categorizations. So what we like, what we dislike, and what we find neutral. So subtle, but it's happening so much and all the time that those actually create the way in which we interact and behave with the world. So we do this with our senses. What we see, we either like it or dislike. What we hear, we don't like the chatter in the background. We might like the voice. And we're making judgments constantly in relation to these categorizations that we do. Majority of the time, we're not even aware that we're categorizing. It's automatic. It's like an automatic response system. But actually, if we were to open and look more clearly, we'd see that these categories form the basis of the majority of our anxiety, the majority of our depressions, and our judgments about others, and the big one, the inner critic, the one that's constantly saying, you're not ready to do the talk, this isn't polished enough, yada, yada, yada. So the inner critic that completely and utterly brings us down because of the brain's negativity bias is prominent in the dislikes. They're constantly there. So is there a way in which we can work with these well-being cogs by becoming aware of the self-construct that's been created? When I say self-construct, even what does that mean? Well, we were born. If we were lucky, we had parents or carers. We've had the school system, media, politics, government, you name it, has shaped and conditioned the way in which we see ourselves. And we have given likes and dislikes in relation to that. So we like this, we don't like that. This group of people's okay and safe, this is not. So all of this creates this divisive way of seeing others. Are they friend, are they foe? It's a little bit in line with anxiety. The sayings, isn't it, that anxiety, we've moved along from tigers in the jungle and running away, but actually our nervous systems haven't. What we detect subtly, even via an email or a glance, might elicit the same effect. So if we're doing that with anxiety and our sense of threat, we're also doing it with how we judge others and how we perceive others to judge us. Because we're creating ways in which we relate to people and experience on the back of this self-construct. Who am I? What do I like? How do I want to be perceived? Social desirability will be a big part of that as well. I'm desperate to fit in, so I'll say things to make people like me, etc. So equanimity is this hidden centerpiece that's not explicit in psychological literature. It fascinates me. And I'm talking about equanimity here, not as some spiritual tool, not as a passivity, but as a very real, down-to-earth, practical skill that we can use as inner stability. before we then can work in the world of innovation, creativity, etc. It's a relational intelligence that is hidden. And so why aren't we making this centerpiece? So the inner stability acts as the core of our infrastructure, in our own inner ecosystem before we then relate to others. Because just the same as me, that I have all these likes, dislikes, and neutralities, and I'm relating to those all the time, others are doing the same to me. And I have absolutely no clue about your backgrounds, where you've come from, what you've been through. So the least I can do is respond with an extra dose of patience. They're behaving like this towards me, I don't know why, but because they've categorized me into X or Y or Z, etc. So when we try and de-scramble the inner cogs, it's not really about them working one after the other, or you have to get the mindfulness and then you can work on the compassion, and then we do the. It's not a linear thing. It's messy and it's complex, just as humanity is, and just as we are. So we really can look at this as more of a harmony thing, where is there aspects of us that we can play at the same time to fine tune our well-being. When there's inner stability, there's outer leadership. Often the inner nervous system reflects the external sense of chaos. And it's quite easy to see who is completely governed and identified with these likes and dislikes. Instead of what we kind of need to do is diffuse a bit, cognitively diffuse from these. So just be aware, I don't need to necessarily be like that or judge like that or think like that. There's a moment of pause and reflection that can emerge. True self-awareness. And I'm very against it being this kind of airy-fairy, fluffy thing as well. It's raw courage. And often equanimity is proposed as some kind of peaceful, there's stones or there's metaphors of waterfalls. And it's complete nonsense, because it is the rawest courage you can ever do, is to be open and honest enough with yourself and to be like, wow, I'm judging things like this. This might be triggering X, Y, and Z. This isn't necessarily reality, but it's a reality I've created based upon my nervous system. So when we interact with the world, what are we really interacting with? Is there like this objective reality that there's some kind of truth there? Or is it actually just a play based upon our own inner system that we've labeled, that we've deeply clung on to? Or what is it? So I'd invite you for this talk to explore this notion. It connects things like purpose, authenticity, values. All of these things come into play with alignment. And this is why I think this definition of this open reactive awareness that sees how the self operates, how it's creating preferences, discernments, and habitual behavior, but is able enough to still put that to one side and act with compassion for self and others. That's raw and that's courageous. And that's something that ironically isn't taught. It's kind of implicit. So my mission is to make equanimity explicit. I'm not against judgments, but I'm against non-judgmentalism, if that's the thing. I don't believe you can truly get that. I think this feeling tone attached to everything, very subtle, likes, dislikes, feelings and neutrality. And these are so part of us that we don't often give them a name, that we just assume they're real and true and rigid. But actually, we can learn to respond in a different way. So my hypothesis again is that the majority of judgments that we have about things, the majority, let's maybe put a percentage on 80%, are unhealthy, or they're completely just reproducing past judgments. And that actually we need to dive into discernment, into wisdom. Because you need to judge, we need to categorize. We're humans. Are they friend? Are they foe? Are they going to fit in with us? We need that. It's in us. We can't deny it. But we can work with it and understand if it's coming from a place of wise discernment or just some reproduced narrative that someone else might have told us 10 years ago that we're now just regurgitating for the sake of it because we want to fit in, etc. So there's something here about discernment, and there's many selves that operate at different times. There's been many selves, perhaps you've noticed in the audience, just even listening to this. The reflective self, the anxious self, the tired self, and they all operate, and they're all to an extent competing for our interest. And so equanimity, I see, is actually you are the driver of your vehicle, and all of the selves are given a back seat. And you can choose whether or not to allow them in the car, and I recommend that you would, because otherwise you're suppressing what's really there. So we need to invite the good, the bad, and the ugly into the car, recognize that we are flawed beings, that we carry with it some wonderful qualities, but there's also some not so wonderful qualities, but allow them space, and that becomes integration. And once we're integrated, we're driving. We are driving the vehicle. This is where innovation, creativity occurs, and that's how it's sustainable. Because I've seen a lot of great, wonderful people burn out. Bright stars burning out too quickly. Empathic distress, compassion fatigue. There's no sustainability, and it comes from within. So I was essentially at the beginning thinking how best placed to position this talk, and actually it's just appealing to the fact that we know what it's like to be judged. And we also know why we do it and how it's a necessity. But I'd really like you to reflect, obviously you've heard a host of talks today, on the different versions of self that are competing for your attention. And ask yourself, do you really need to be that version? Or is there some part of you that can take the steering wheel? So we bring the presence and awareness and mindfulness into the moment, but it contains insight. It doesn't just, assume that we're not judging. It's not judging the judgments. You're turning towards them. And when we turn towards them and see them for what they are, they dissipate. And there's just human to humans. And we're in harmony and we're in connection. But the problem is there's so many barriers in the way. This is me in my car. There's a lot of different selves going on. And the equanimity person always tries to remain in the front. But there's a lot of passengers, and it's taken me a long time to realize that they're all allowed in the back seat. So that's my talk, and thanks for listening.